What's up, everybody? It's Ryan here. Today we're going to be talking about the Vlookup function in Microsoft Excel. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Vlookup stands for vertical lookup. Let's start with the basics. If you only have 5 minutes and you need to run out and do a Vlookup in front of some other people, this will get you through it. To explain how Vlookup works, I'm going to use this data set, which has a list of colors, the order in which they appear in the rainbow, and whether or not they are warm or a cool color. The first thing you want to do is type in equals Vlookup and then an open parenthesis. From there are 4 parts to the Vlookup function. The first is the lookup value. This tells Excel what you need to look up. In this case, we're looking at the color green. There are 2 ways to do this. You can either type in the word green in quotes, or the way I prefer to do it is click on a cell that has that value already inside. The cell E2 contains the word green. What we want to look up is whether green is a warm or a cool color. We need to tell Excel where to look. In this case, we're looking in this table right here. There are 2 ways to do this. You can either click and drag and select the exact range, like I just did, or my preferred method is to highlight the entire column where you want Excel to look. Always start with the column that contains your lookup value. Once you've selected this by left-clicking and dragging, freeze this by clicking F4 in case I have to copy this formula later. The third part is the column index number. This tells Excel which column to pull your data from. In this case, it's column 1, 2, 3 for the warm and cool. Type in a 3. Finally, the range lookup. The 2 options here are either true or false. I almost always use false to ensure data integrity. Once you finish your formula, close it up with a closed parentheses and then hit enter. As you can see, it pulled in cool as the warm or cool option for the color green. Okay, now you know the basics. You can either head to that meeting and do a Vlookup for whoever needs to see it, or you can stick around and learn some more. Vlookup can be used in a bunch of different ways, but which one should I show you? It's a good question. I should probably think about this over some coffee. Much better. Now I'm going to show you 3 things. After my coffee, of course. The first is how to file prep for heavy Excel gymnastics. Then I'm going to show you how to use concatenation for your Vlookups. And then I'm going to show you how to use an HLOOKUP as part of your lookup value. Now, don't get me wrong, I love movie night, but here's the thing. With 2 kids, I have a very small sweet spot to hit in terms of something they're going to like and something that's appropriate for their age. This gives you an idea of the delicate balance that must be struck. If the movie is geared towards a younger audience, we'll either end up catching the kids as they swan dive off the couch or enduring a litany of boredom complaints. On the flip side, if you've got a high-octane movie that's geared towards an older audience, it's going to induce nightmares. And if the kids are awake and screaming, I'm not sleeping either. Maybe even worse is having to explain why certain words or activities are inappropriate, especially when it comes in the form of responding to a complaint from school. Don't worry, hope is not lost. I've got an idea. Let's check it out. In this file, you can see that we've got a list of all the movies along with some pertinent data for each one. We're going to use this file to figure out what movie we're going to choose for movie night. When setting up a file to work, I always keep the raw data just that, always raw. Copy this data, insert a new tab, paste this data, and then rename this tab the Raw Data Sandbox. I've also added a tab that has a list of the movies that we may want to watch. So far, we've watched these 4 movies, and we've liked these 3. I'm going to use this tab to perform my analysis. As you may recall, I'm looking for a movie that's both good and age appropriate. To determine if a movie is good, we're actually going to check its IMDb score. In this case, the IMDb score is column E. I'm going to go ahead and copy the header and paste that in my list of movies to watch analysis tab. Now I also want to understand if it's age appropriate. We're going to copy this appropriate ages header and again post it into our analysis tab. From there, we're going to go back and perform our VLOOKUP functions. Okay, our file's all set up. Now we're just going to do a little Excel gymnastics to get us where we need to be. We'll start with the VLOOKUP on the IMDb score. If you may remember, the formula is equals VLOOKUP, and then in this case we're going to look up on the movie title, which is here, and then I am going to freeze the column in this case, which is column A, by hitting the F4 key 3 times. That means if I move my formula over, it's going to retain looking up on column A. Do a comma, go to our sandbox, and then again we're looking for the IMDb score, which is column E. So we're going to highlight everything, the entire column, and we're going to left click and drag it over. Now if you look up here, you can see that it's the 5th row over. So go ahead and remember that, but also drag it all the way to the end of your data set, freeze the columns, and then it was column 5, and then always false. There's the IMDb score for Wally. Next, we're going to do the VLOOKUP for the appropriate ages. In this case, we could go in and retype the entire formula again, but if I do that, it's going to take too long. So what I'll do instead is click here and drag, left click and drag the formula over by clicking on this box in the lower right corner and dragging. Now, as you can see, it's actually just dragged over the exact same formula as was in the IMDb score box. What we can do to change that is to look at the appropriate ages column in the raw data sandbox. In this case, it's column D, which if I start here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 columns from our lookup value. All I have to do is go into the formula and change the 5 to a 4, and it pulls in the appropriate age value. Now it's time for a little Excel gymnastics. This will eventually help you become an Excel super ninja. $5 on Fiverr. Not sure it was worth it. Now my goal is to find out the IMDb score and the appropriate age rating for every single one of these movies on this list. Similar to what we did before, you can actually highlight this and you can drag this down. That's one method of pulling everything down. You can also take this, copy it, and then start doing one of these things where you hold down Shift and do down and then paste there. Or my preferred method, you could go here and then if you double click on this little box, it'll copy down the formulas all the way to the end of your data set. That's usually the quickest way to do it. However, if you have an incredibly long data set, you may be better off highlighting your information, copying it, and then going to the bottom and then going back up to the top, selecting those cells and pasting it that way. That's going to be the fastest if you have a large data set. If you put everything together, it looks something like this. Ta-da! See? Not bad at all. Pretty easy, right? The sharp-eyed among you may have spotted something that was a little funky. Let's check it out again. Do you see it now? Let me help. Now, if you look at line 11, the parent trap, you'll see the results is a £N/A. What this means is that when it was looking for the parent trap, it did not find a result. Let's do some investigating. If we look into the raw data sandbox, the first record is the parent trap, but you can see it doesn't just say the parent trap, it says the parent trap 1961. That's because there's actually 2 movies called the Parent Trap. This was a remake of the original. So we have to tell Excel which of the lookup values we need it to look up. Is it the 1961 version or the 1998 version? The correct answer is, let's look for both. To do that, I'm going to insert a row, and then I'm going to copy everything from row 11 into row 12. We need to add in the year. I could do it just for these 2 rows, but I'm going to do it so that if I run into this issue again somewhere throughout my data set, I can fix it just as easily. So let's go back up to the raw data sandbox. Let's grab the year header and let's paste that here. Once we do that, we're going to do our same VLOOKUP formula. But in this case, we're looking for a year, which is 1, 2 away. So we're going to change the 5 to a 2, and that brings in the year. We're going to copy that down. From here, I'm going to cheat a little bit. If I go back to the raw data sandbox, I see that the parent trap has a 1961 version and again a 1998 version. I'm going to go ahead and plug in those 2 years, 1961 and 1998, into the data set. And now, after a bunch of twists and turns, we found our way into the second lesson, which is how to use concatenation for your VLOOKUP lookup value. To make an adjustment to your formula to include concatenation, go ahead and click inside your formula. You'll notice that this pops up down here, and then click on this FX. It brings up the VLOOKUP formula broken into its different components. Now what we're actually looking to do is change the parent trap to the parent trap space, and then within parentheses 1961, which is the year. So we're going to add an ampersand, and then we're going to add in quotes, which indicates text, a space, open parentheses, 1961, close parentheses, close quotes. See, now we have the parent trap, 1961. It brings in the IMDb score of 72. What I'm going to do is change this part of it, the 1961, so that it points to this year rather than being hard-coded to 1961. Now to do that, I need to add a quote after the parenthesis. Then I need to change this to point at the cell B11. So I need to add another ampersand, which says concatenate this bit of text with this cell, B11. I'm going to freeze the B, and then another ampersand, and then include that closing parenthesis within the quotes as well. That brings us to the same result. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this a little bit deeper so you can see what this looks like. You're saying, okay, look at A11, which is the parent trap, and then use a space and a parenthesis opener, and then an ampersand, and then the year, which is in B11, and then a close parenthesis within quotes. All you need to do now is just drag that down one, and you've got the 2 IMDb scores for the parent trap. Okay, we're 2/3 of the way there. The last bit of this is using the HLOOKUP function in order to reference your column index number. This will provide unbelievable flexibility when you don't know which of your headers you need to bring in for your data set. Let's take a look. This is some more advanced stuff, so be careful. You can hose up your data integrity in a hurry on this. Let's go ahead and start in our sandbox. What we're going to do is insert a row underneath the title row. I'm going to go ahead and make this thing a different color. How about we go with maybe yellow? All right, just to make it stand out a little bit. Now what we're going to do is start off with a 1, because this is going to be our column index number. We're just going to add 1 to each subsequent column. So equals that plus 1, and then I'm just going to copy this formula to the very end. There we go. Now if you'll notice, this goes in order. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. What this is going to help us do is find the column index number using the title. So how do we do this? We're going to go to the list of movies to watch, and then from here we're going to change the column index number, which is this 5 right here, into an HLOOKUP. All we do is highlight the 5, type in HLOOKUP, and then it's going to prompt us for each of the components of the formula. So same thing here, the lookup value that we want is actually the title. So we're going to click on this title, which is an F1, and then we're going to freeze the 1 by hitting F4 twice. That means it's always going to look at that first row of data. From there, we go to our table array, which is in the raw sandbox data. Now, rather than going like this, right, left to right, we're actually going to go top to bottom. And we're just going to highlight row 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and freeze that, and then it's row index number 2, and then same deal, false. Go ahead and close the parentheses, hit enter. You can do everything that we did before, copy all that down, and then same over here. Drag this over a couple, and then let's bring in some columns that we're not using. How about we bring in the rating? Oh, there it goes. Pulled that in right away. And then maybe you can also bring in, I don't know, let's do the votes in the category. So we do the votes in the category. Boom. There it is. Okay, that's it for this video. It's my first one ever, so please let me know whatever you'd like to see more of or less of, depending on what you liked or didn't like. If there's an easier way to do something, please let me know that as well. The only thing left for me to do is pick a movie and make some popcorn. Thank you again for watching.